Only in New York, where you say, I like your
Yeah,
dress.
man.
Also, are you a like world renowned movement artist that wants to be in our random indie movie? Thanks so much for joining me today. I've got Tris Galust and Tyler Chipman of The Shade, which is coming to theaters on September 13th, 2024. It is a slow burn psychological thriller with some fantastical elements, an amazing performance by Chris, and kind of a mix of family trauma and a little bit more supernatural as well. I enjoyed this a lot. I thought it was an interesting story. I love the way it kind of built slowly and gave us a lot of time with the characters at the start. So I'm very excited to talk to you, and thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you,
Thank you,
David.
Dave.
Of
Appreciate it.
course,
Watch.
of course. It's just a lovely family coming of age story, just a happy family with no problems whatsoever, right? Just a wonderful
None.
like Hallmark kind of movie, basically.
None at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So,
Nailed it.
Tyler, you wrote this. What horrible thing happened to you to make you want to write the story?
Uh, well, all kinds of things. How much time do we
Like,
have?
yeah, we got all the time in the world. This is free
Yeah, yeah.
therapy for you.
No, it's there's a whole mixture of ideas at play here. I think on the personal side, you know, the anxiety and panic stuff is stuff I've had a long history with, and I gave that to the character. But other than that, this is certainly not even something that's approaching autobiographical in any way, shape, or form. I know people, I have good friends who have dealt with some of the things that some of the other things, I guess I should say, that the characters do, especially the Ryan character. So, I am drawing from um tangential experience, I guess, having seen people I care about go through some of these things. I did a lot of research, so I could be as sensitive and honest as I could in portraying some of those things. But yeah, I mean, yeah, there's a little bit of my own lived experience in there, but probably just a little bit, which I'm grateful for. I should also say.
Yeah, definitely not a sad thing when when you have to research to figure out how this affects people. But yeah, I was curious, like how did you come up with some of these, elements to kind of visualize the trauma and visualize what Ryan is going through? It sounds like you did some research, talked to some people, just kind of like dug in and kind of figured out what would be a good way to represent this on screen.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah.
Awesome. And so, Chris, when did you get involved in this? How early in the process was it? And what made you want to play Ryan?
In terms of how early, I'm not sure. From what from what Tyler's been telling me, they've been receiving a lot of self tapes or audition tapes from different young men, and that it took him a minute. I think Tyler will tell the story a little better than I would. But in terms of getting involved with the project, I mean, I was once after I auditioned and read the full script, I was really excited. I thought it was a story that wasn't so common, that you see in film nowadays. And I also saw it as my own kind of challenge, whether or not I can portray the character with as much respect and as best as I could, and also getting the green light from Tyler that I helped his image, the character that he wrote on paper comes to life. So I was extremely excited once we started, talking and get the wheels turning. So
Yeah, exactly. And his character, Ryan is an interesting character because you're rooting for him at the start. It seems like he's dealing with stuff, but he's kind of put together. You're rooting for him, and then as the trauma gets worse, and as things bubble up, like he could be unlikable, right? Given some of the things that he does, given some of his reactions. So you have to kind of balance that line of portraying how bad mental, depression can be, mental illness can be, but also staying on the audience's good side in however way you can. So I thought that was an interesting balance because like definitely some of the later things I'm like, why are you doing this, Ryan? But sometimes there really isn't an explanation. Like you can't really understand why some of these things are happening. It's just like your visceral reaction to some of the, triggers or some of the things in your environment.
well, I think that's kind of like a human natural response. I mean, not all characters can be perfect, and I feel like that's what we kind of have in our film is the kind of human element. As perfect as we all want to be, you know, if you put yourself in that character's shoes, how would you react? We all have like this kind of subconscious uh thing about us that when there is traumatic experience or there's a complex situation, a lot of us just either shut down or kind of start pushing others away. And I feel like it's natural. It's what makes us human.
Yeah, exactly. And so, how did you get into Ryan's head? Like, I don't know what your background is in depression or mental health. Had you dealt with some of this before? Did you kind of like do similar research and try to just figure out what Ryan would do and try to get in his head in whatever way you could? Like, how did you kind of craft this character?
I mean, there is some. I I'm really weird with terms. I don't like to call it that, but yeah, I feel like that there is some traumatic instances that me as an actor can kind of conjure, but it was all built up of my past experiences, talking to Tyler, trying to make that character come to life, doing a lot of research. I believe there were times that one of the first times that I came up to Massachusetts to hang out with Tyler, we watched some films, tried to discuss the character, and we watched some videos about, say like panic attacks. Because me personally, I've never experienced one, but I can relate and see how a person can get into that kind of headspace and really, you know,
Yeah,
be
definitely.
uncomfortable. Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think everyone can at least, envision what that might look like, even if you haven't had it happen to you. It's like, everyone has kind of that flight or fight mentality at times. And so just take that to the extreme and you can at least have a rough idea of, well, obviously you have to do a little bit more research and kind of like get deeper into it. But I think everyone can relate on that level at
So,
least.
yeah.
And a lot of like what made, added the heart to this film was your relationship with your little brother James. Where did you find Sam Duncan, and what was it? How did you kind of get that chemistry that you had on screen? Was there any? Did you do? I assume you did chemistry reads, but I don't know. Maybe he was signed on before you did. I don't know.
I'm not sure about that either. And in terms of finding Sam Duncan, I feel like that's definitely more of a Tyler question. In terms of our chemistry, uh, at at the time that we were shooting, he was a cool little dude. Now he's grown a lot more since the time that we produced the film. But he was very easy to work with. There were times that in free time that we had, we would read lines back and forth. But I feel like he's a very talented and natural actor that it was absolutely easy to work with him. Excuse me.
That's what happens with child actors. By the time the film's released, they look completely different. You're like, where did this like young adult come from?
Yeah.
Absolutely true.
And Tyler, there was some like fairly dark subject matter that Sam at least was in the vicinity of. I don't know, how did you balance like some of that dark subject matter with having a young actor in there? I assume that there were like strategic cuts and things like
Yeah.
that, but what was that like filming a serious film with a kid in it?
Yeah. Well, I think that we benefited greatly from Sam being extraordinarily mature. Like a very high level of emotional intelligence. Uh, it, he's seen and read and heard things that a lot of other. I think he was 11 at the time we shot. 11-year-old kids maybe haven't, but man, the kid is just brilliant. And I know Chris will attest to this. Sometimes you sit around and listen to him talk, and you're like, how do you know this stuff? Like, how have you? I remember one, yeah,
How are
but
you so dark? You're so young.
yeah, but never in like a troubling way. He's just a brilliant young artist, and he took direction extremely well. He understood the stakes. He was amazing. He's just the first the first time I saw him read for the part, I was like, yeah, that's him. But I don't necessarily even need to see anybody else anymore. But he
That's
was
awesome.
fantastic, and I thought he and Chris, uh, you know, there great rapport there. I think that they hit it off right. When we moved into Devens, Massachusetts, where we home based out of for the duration of the shoot. He and Chris were kind of pals. They were pretty inseparable whenever they were in the same vicinity. So yeah, it's just one of the there's a little bit of luck involved, sure, but you also try to cast people who you think are going to work well together. And yeah, so it was a little bit of that, and there was a little bit of luck, and it seems to have worked out very well, very nicely.
No, that's awesome. And Speaking of like probably maybe one of the more memorable characters, where did you find Charlotte Stickles? And like what was it like the first time you saw her in this like horrifying getup and the way that she was moving in just an
All right.
unnatural way?
So you have this is the craziest story. So I was like terrified. I was like, how are we gonna find this person? I have no idea how we're gonna find this person to play this role. I had two brilliant casting directors, Lena Todd and Byron Bean. Lena is from and lives in at least Hudson, New York, and she was out having dinner, and she saw a young woman who, had a dress she liked on, and said, "Hey, this is a great dress." This is the story I was told. So they got to talking. This is Charlotte Stickles, 27 years old. She's a beautiful dancer. She calls herself a movement artist. Lena was like, "This is going to sound weird, but bear with me. I'm casting this movie called The Shade. We have this role. I think maybe you should think about, let me know if you're interested." So a few days later, I had this like 3 minute long like art like piece tape from Charlotte. She had a filmmaker friend who like lit it, and she was like in her backyard, like rolling around on the fence. And I was like, "Where did you get this? Like, who is this person?" It's just one of those things that's absolute blind luck. Lena, has all the qualities you want in a casting director. She's out there, paying attention to other human beings, exploring potential. And thank goodness she approached Charlotte at that restaurant and striked up that conversation, because otherwise I'm not really sure what we would have done or where we would have turned. But that's how that worked out.
Only in New York, where you say, "I like your
Yeah,
dress."
man.
Also, are you a like world-renowned movement artist that wants to be in our random indie movie?
You have no idea. It's fucking bonkers, but that's exactly what happened.
That is
Exactly.
amazing. So you
Yeah.
mentioned you filmed this in Massachusetts. One thing I was wondering, there's some scenes where there's just like beautiful rolling fog, and I couldn't tell if that was like effects or if that was just natural beauty.
Yeah.
Was that just like, did you film this in this a naturally kind of like eerie place?
So we got very lucky in that. I will tell you this, David. I am absolutely anti fog machine hazer. I've had such terrible experience on sets with fog machines that I remember the first time my cinematographer, who's a brilliant guy named Tom, um, we were shooting the dream sequence. I shouldn't say that. It's a spoiler. We were shooting the sequence in which Ryan wakes up in the woods and walks toward, a tree. And he was like, we need some haze here, man. We need some fog. Everything's gonna pop." We turned it on, and we had this thing that was coming down, and it was like supposed to sort of look like ash falling. Chris, do you remember this? But
Yes,
didn't
sir.
look like ash. Chris was walking toward the camera, and he was like covered in these gigantic. I was like,
Flakes.
"Turn everything off." I was like, "Turn the hazer off. Turn the ash machine off. We're done. We're done." I said, "I don't want to see those things on my set again." We had to use them once because all the other fog you see is absolutely, it was just there. We just got super lucky with the conditions. There's a particular scene, because we shot one side of the sequence like weeks before we shot the second side of the sequence. We had to use a little smoke just to get it matched, or it would have been, Chris would have been driving out of fog into like
Yeah.
a completely clear environment. It would have been
Yeah,
very strange and not matched. So we did have to do that. But for the most part, what you're seeing is just a New England fall. Yeah,
just
because
a
we shot in
nat
October and early November. Yeah.
just a naturally eerie place. There's probably some ghosts there that are hanging around. That's the causing the fog.
Oh, no, no question. There's no question. Yeah.
So I know we have limited time. I'm going to switch to, I call it the lightning round. They're just lightweight questions about the film. I want to say your personal experiences mapped to things in the movie. Feel free to skip any of them. I won't be offended, but I try to keep them very answerable.
Okay.
All right. First question. Do either of you have siblings?
Yes.
All
Yes,
right.
sir.
Next question. Chris, your character is a talented tattoo artist. Do either of you have tattoos?
Yep.
Yes.
All right. As elaborate as Ryan's, or a little more understated?
A little more understated. I actually like Ryan's
Understated.
tattoos very much.
You get some. Chris
Yeah.
has one tattoo that's also Ryan's tattoo. It's a mustache
Oh,
on the
nice.
back of his arm. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Very nice. I love that
Incorporated.
eagle.
Yep.
that eagle that we see, that was an awesome piece.
Yeah.
Next question. Have either of you ever lived at a, we'll call it a half address, like something and a half?
No, I have
No.
not.
It's a smart thing for real estate, right? Like you have a house, divide into two, you get twice the income, right? Might as well.
Throw another one in the backyard.
There were some prominent, backyard fire scenes. When was the last time either of you had s'mores?
Less than 2 weeks ago.
Excellent.
It had to have been a while ago. Even if I did have s'mores, it was probably with Tyler.
All right. Bad influence right there.
I'm the s'mores guy.
So this film had, occasionally Ryan would visualize a place in his head to kind of calm down. And that changed over time as we learned. But do you have a place that you go to when you feel stressed out, either physical, like a physical place or a mental place that you go to just to calm down and get rid of the stress?
I do personally, and it's not very much dissimilar to the one that Ryan says he used to go to in the movie.
All right.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh.
Absolutely.
This next question, I assume, that you both are going to answer yes, but let's find out. This film also involved, mental health and therapy. Have either of you been to therapy?
Yes. Yeah. I'm a CBT pro.
I was going to say, I feel like in this world, everyone has to go to therapy at this point. It's almost a requirement. And the last question, related to the ending, though I won't spoil it, but just, this is related to the ending. Who was the last person you flipped off?
Probably Chris, I guess.
Well, you're just getting him to act, get more passion.
I actually have no idea. I don't. Yeah, I'm not a middle finger user when I'm driving or anything. So that is probably quite a while ago.
You must drive in a charmed place, because my middle finger is always ready to go when I'm driving.
You live in New York?
No, I live in DC. The driving is about as bad here.
That adds up.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Chris, do you remember, or you can skip it?
I mean, absolutely. For my day job, I work with a bunch of delinquents, so we flip each other up pretty common.
There you go. It's just how you show love. It's your love language. So.
Absolutely. Yep.
So the film is coming to theaters on September 13th, 2024. You're both out promoting the film, getting the word out. But after people see The Shade, what can they look for next from both of you? And I guess we'll start with you, Chris. Do you have any projects on the horizon that you can talk about?
Not as of at this moment. Let's just put it that way.
Cryptic, okay.
Don't want to jinx anything.
No, yeah, understandable. Understandable.
Cryptic is good. Dave and I years ago put together a very, very detailed outline of what we wanted to be our second movie, and I am currently in the script rewrite stage on that. It's called The Seventh Gulch. It's pretty wild, and that's all I'll say. No plot details quite yet.
All right. Well, if that's wild after seeing The Shade, then I'm excited to see, what is wild in your mind. But I will wait with bated breath for both of your projects, your named one and Chris's cryptic one. But while people wait for those, you can check out The Shade coming to theaters on December 13th, 2024. This is Chris Galust and Tyler Chipman. Thank you so much for your time.
David, thank you, man. Nice to meet you.
Thank you, David.